It's Throwback Thursday.
Hey everybody, Chris Fafalius here. It's Throwback Thursday again here at Chris DeMakes A Podcast. And this week, we're going to go back in time to January 24th of 2022 when the legendary Huey Lewis sat in for an episode where he discussed the writing, recording, and release of The Power of Love. I think it's safe to say that Chris and I were both a little bit starstruck to have Huey on the show, and I think this is one of those episodes where you hear the guest be a little apprehensive at first, but then really open up once they realize all the preparation and thought that went into it. This is one of my favorite episodes we've ever done, and Huey is definitely one of the first names I drop when someone who isn't familiar with the podcast asks who we've had on. But I won't hold you up anymore here. From January 24th, 2022, this is episode number 87. Huey Lewis discusses Huey Lewis in the News, The Power of Love.
Hey everybody, who's ready to go back to the future with today's guest? Huey Lewis, lead vocalist for Bay Area, California rock and rollers, Huey Lewis in the News. We're going to take you back in time to break down the writing, recording, and release of the band's first number one hit, The Power of Love, taken from the 1985 soundtrack for the movie, Back to the Future. Some of the greatest songs are written super quickly, and this one is no exception. The music was presented to Huey by guitarist Chris Hayes, and Huey fills us in how he wrote the lyrics and melody in one fell swoop, listening on headphones to an instrumental version of the song through a Walkman cassette player while he was jogging. Submitting a song for a movie was uncharted territory for the band, and they were unsure at first if The Power of Love would even work for the film. Well, let's just say it worked so well and climbed up the top 40 radio charts so quickly that production of the movie was rushed to release the film sooner than planned. That is something I can't recall ever happening with another movie. This song was massive and opened up an already huge band to an even bigger audience. And Huey made his acting debut in the film, something he thought he'd never have the opportunity to do. Super cool. For all this and a whole lot more, stay right here in the present with us. This is a good one.
Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast.
So Huey, how's it going?
Good. All good.
I want to give the listeners a little background here on you and the band. You started with a Bay Area band called Clover throughout the 70s with keyboardist Sean Hopper. And after Clover disbanded, you put together a band called Huey Lewis and the American Express, later changing the name to Huey Lewis in the News and releasing the first self-titled album in 1980. Sean was the only member besides yourself of Clover to join this band, where you guys secured a deal with Chrysalis Records. And the follow-up album, 1982's Picture This, is where I was introduced to the band. Both 95 YNF out of Tampa and Wink FM 97 out of Fort Myers, Florida, were both spinning the heck out of this killer track called Do You Believe in Love?
Love you all over. Do you believe in love? Do you believe it's true? Do you believe in love?
Love that song. In 1983, saw the release of Sports, the album that shot the band into superstardom, bolstered by radio and MTV staples The Heart of Rock and Roll, Heart and Soul, I Want a New Drug, and If This Is It. In between Sports and its follow-up album from 1986 called 4, there was a little movie you may have heard of that came out in 1985 called Back to the Future, and the band provided two songs of the film, Back in Time and the band's first number one hit, The Power of Love, which we're going to break down today. In all, the band has released 10 albums, the most recent being Weather from 2020. And I just got to say, not a Fairweather fan here. I loved all your stuff over the years. Some of my favorite tracks ever were the record you did 91, Hard at Play. There was a couple days off and a few of those songs were just killer.
Cool. I like it.
So yeah, I just it was really hard to narrow down a song from your catalog. You have so many iconic hits, so many that I love. I love the album, the deep cuts. Finally Found a Home. It might be my favorite song you ever did, but I feel like we had to go with Power of Love. And I saw the documentary where you talked about this, and even though the story's kind of of out there, I'm going to dig a little deeper here. And I have so many questions. How did this start? You're in between sports and four. Was this song laying around from sports that you had, or was it written specific for the film?
It was begun before the film. Bob Zemeckis, who directed Back to the Future, Steven Spielberg, who produced it, and Bob Gale, who wrote it, whose story it was, although Zemeckis is co-writer also, and Neil Canton as well. They asked to take a meeting with us at Amblin Entertainment when Amblin had just started. And they said, listen, we've written this movie, and the lead character is a guy called Marty McFly. And in real life, his favorite band would be Huey Lewis and the News. So we thought, how would you like to write a song for the film? I said, wow, I'm flattered, but I don't know how to write for film necessarily. I said, and frankly, I don't fancy writing a song called Back to the Future. They said, oh no, we don't care. It can be called anything. We just want one of your songs. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just give it a think and send you the next thing we're working on. And they go, great to meet you. So then boom. So I went back, and Chris had already written the chord progression for Power Love, although it just started with a verse, the minor part. I liked it a lot, and I remember I went on a run, a little jog, and I took a Walkman. Remember Sony Walkmans?
Absolutely.
And I wrote the words in one run, one jog, and then I wrote it all down. And then Chris and I got it together, and we kind of demoed it up a little bit. And Johnny had some great arrangement ideas, and then we made this demo. And my recollection is we made this demo, sent it to Zemeckis, and he loved it. But that's not Zemeckis' recollection.
Like a quick question for you. Was Back in Time written prior to Power of Love?
Gotta get back in time. Gotta get back in time. Get me back in time.
No, we hadn't written Back in Time yet. I had not even seen the movie. I had not read a script. Nothing. They just told me, hey, this guy, we just want a song. We want one of your songs. Zemeckis' recollection is I sent the demo to him, and he said, yeah, but it's good, but it's not up enough, up, quote unquote. And I gave that a big think, and we got together, and then Johnny came up with the intro, the big major. Bam, bam,
oh, yeah.
Bam. We put that on there, and then he loved it. By then, I had seen the script now. I hadn't seen the movie yet, but I'd seen the script. They'd sent me the script, and I thought there's no real love object in it. I didn't think it was going to work for their movie.
Yeah.
And then, but they loved it, and they obviously used it well.
That's so cool. And of course, you were in the movie playing the teacher at the talent show. And I got to tell you, I was probably 12 when the movie came out. My friends were telling me, and of course, you were all over MTV. I knew what you looked like, but I'm like, he's not in the movie. I had to rewind that scene, of course, on VHS, Huey, to rewind the scene to look at you because they had you, in a wig and everything.
Yeah.
And it just.
And that was part of the deal.
Hold it, fellas. I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next, please.
What was that like? Because you said you had no background in movies. That had to have been a trip.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was, interestingly, that movie was shot mostly at night because Michael J. Fox was on Family Ties and committed to doing that during the day. They started the movie Back to the Future with a different Marty McFly. Eric, I can't remember his name now, Stoltz or something. And they shot a whole bunch of it. And then they said, it is not working. We need Michael J. Fox. So they made this deal with him, and he had to do the film, when he wasn't doing Family Ties.
When did the guy sleep?
And so we shot our scene at night. It was at night. And it was Bob Zemeckis' idea that it'd be kind of a clever little nod. And I thought, not really. I was kind of against it, to be honest, in the very beginning. And then he said, look, And we agreed that we do it if it was just kind of like an in joke. And I was uncredited and disguised, partially disguised, and it would be a little kind of cookie for people, so.
Right. Well, and of course, I mean, you guys were MTV staples all over the radio, from 83 when sports was released up until 85. It was just, you were one of the bands at that point, one of the most popular bands of the 80s. Did you have any idea at all, like, this could be something, this movie could be big, or this could be a big thing for us?
This made a lot of sense for us because sports had just come out and we'd had 5 hits on sports. We were out touring and all this stuff, and we didn't have another record really ready, yet. And so this was going to be a nice thing to kind of buy the time while we did another record.
Sure.
I do remember that we cut the song, and then we went on tour in Europe, and then we came back and mixed it. And I remember when I cut the vocal, and I cut it at the record plant in Studio D in the record plant. I cut the lead vocal and I sang it. And then I came back around the studio to just check it and comp it. And we were doing it. And I finally got it kind of the one master vocal. And then I just played it back to listen to it. And Sean, our keyboard player, was in back of me. And he said, "You know what?" I said, "What?" "That's the best thing we've ever done." He said. I remember thinking, that's the weirdest thing I ever heard. Really? What? I would never think of anything like that. Like, what's the best thing we've ever, because we were producing our record. So we're just in the middle of it, just trying to make everything sound as good as possible. I have no concept of what's good or bad or what's our best or worst. But Sean said that right after that play. It was pretty interesting. And I thought, oh, wow, maybe it is pretty good.
Yeah, well, and I guess the guy in your own band that you were in a previous band with, one of your best friends, he's not going to blow smoke up your backside. So there was something. There seemed like there was something there, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I want to say bands were more prolific back then because there was money to be made on records, especially you guys. I mean, Picture This was a hit. And then, of course, everything went through the roof with you guys. I was surprised to hear you say you really didn't have anything laying around in between. Were you guys prolific? Did you have a lot of demos and things in the vaults?
Yeah, but we'd written 3 records already. And it wasn't just sports. We'd written 3 records. I mean, our first record has got Some of My Lives Are True is a great song that we missed.
I know you think that I've been stringing you along and that I told you a few. But sooner or later when you say love you, you're gonna realize some of my lies are true.
We got a bunch of great songs on there that we made.
The original version of Trouble in Paradise is on the first record.
That's right. Don't Ever Tell Me That You Love Me is kind of a nice one too. And we miss that a little bit, We just cut everything real fast. And so after writing 3 records, I mean, look, we wrote a song called Heart of Rock and Roll. Well, you can't write a song called the Soul of Rock and Roll, can you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, how many songs can you write with rock and roll in the title?
Yeah.
Right? So that's gone. So, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to be as prolific, late. And the other thing is when you're hungry and you're up and coming and you're still anonymous. Now, when you become a celebrity and stuff, your world kind of collapses a little bit, and there's not as much experience on which to draw, perhaps, So I don't know. It just gets harder.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure you've heard this too. I loved you guys, and I can't think of anybody growing up. There was always haters when you're kids. I don't like this band. I don't like that band. I can't recall anybody ever bagging on Huey Lewis and the News. You were kind of like that all-American guy. You looked like the bar band down the street. You didn't have the long hair and the makeup. You were just real. It was cool. Was there ever any pressure? Was there pressure from the record labels to dress you up and be that thing?
Well, see, the thing is, we started actually just before music television. We actually formed in 78, 77, 78, 79. Our first record came out in 80, January of 80, but we formed before music television. So, I don't have any tattoos. If this had been 5 years later, I'd be tattooed head to foot if I thought it was going to help. I mean, would I have pierced my earrings or my nose? Or of course, in a heartbeat. But in my day, it was an audio thing. It really wasn't much of a visual, not near as much of a visual thing as is. I mean, let's go way back. Music used to be the domain of blind artists.
Uh-huh.
And now, I mean, lots of them, you know what I mean? And now it's much harder to make the video. And so, I mean, things change.
Sure. And one other thing I want to touch on before we jump into the song and start breaking it down, was there ever any pressure? I mean, again, the first record, I know there was a producer, but ever since then, you were self-producing these records. You know, was Chrysalis ever in there barking at you guys, Chrysalis Records, to, you know, your A&R person, to be, hey, we need a producer? Because of course, you know, you had I want to say minor hit, you know, Picture This was a hit, but it was nothing like Sports. Like, I guess they entrusted in you. You guys were getting good sounds, and heck, you had played forever together. You were tight as hell.
You know, our first record was produced by Bill Schnee, and didn't do anything. And so our second record, you know, fortunately, you get 2 records. You wouldn't get 2 records today.
No way.
And then our second record needed to be a hit. If you think back, this is 1981 now. There's no internet. There's no jam band. And even FM radio, which started in the 60s as a play anything you want disc jockey from Big Daddy Todd Donahue and KMPX and all that. By the mid 70s, FM radio was completely programmed and was the format. You know, interestingly, Top 40, the term Top 40 comes from a programmer, I think in Fresno, California, who opined that with the advent of push button radio, now somebody, as long as you didn't play anything that they didn't like, they wouldn't switch the channel. But now they had the capability of switching the channel when they heard something they didn't like. So the idea was narrow your playlist. Just top 40, play the top 40 songs all the time. Well, by 1981, CHR, which was the FM version of top 40, called Contemporary Hit Radio, was what that was. And there were really only 28 songs, maybe 29 songs that they played. And the top 5 got 8 or 9 plays a day. And number 29 only got 1 a day. So the playlists were even more narrow. They were so narrow, it was unbelievable. And that was our job. You needed to have a hit single on one of those 28 records, or you weren't going to be able to make records again. So that was our job. Wow. And so we wanted to produce ourselves because we knew we'd have to make commercial decisions, and we wanted to live with those commercial decisions. And we wanted to do that ourselves. And our manager believed in us, and he convinced the record company. Fortunately, they were 6,000 miles away in London, and they were small, had a small label. And so we produced Picture This ourselves, and had a kind of a tickle with Do You Believe in Love? Then we were off on our own. But we really came into our own on Sports, you know. Although Picture This could have been a bigger record if they had, you know, the first single was Do You Believe in Love? And they were so enamored of us as a band because we were a good band. We had a depth to us that was, because, you know, we had R&B side to us, so rhythm and blues. And so they thought, okay, we got the hit now with these guys. Let's go right to the heavy stuff. And our second single was Hope You Love Me Like You Say You Do, which is a slow R&B ballad.
Oh, yes, I'm strong, but I'm weak when it comes down to loving you. And I hope you love me like you say you do. And I hope you love me like you say you do.
And it did not crack the top 20. And so Working for a Living was our third single from that record.
Yeah.
And it was too late. We lost our momentum, and it was not really a hit either. But it's gone on to become a really big song and covered by a lot of people, and probably would have been a hit had it been released second.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the strategy. And so, but from then on, they were going to let us produce our records because we were successful.
There wasn't a lot of bands back then, especially in the 80s, 70s and 80s, that were producing their own stuff. You had you guys, Prince, maybe the Eagles, but, you know, they wanted to bring bona fide hit-making producers in. And the fact, when I look back and I look at artists after mentioned Prince and you guys, you knew they were just stellar, killer musicians that knew what they were doing, because the labels wanted to meddle in everything back then, as you know. So the fact that they left you alone is just goes to show how great you guys were.
Yeah, and they were Chrysalis Records. It wasn't CBS, you know, and so we were able to manhandle them a little bit. And we were literally 6,000 miles away. And my manager went to bat for us. And we weren't spring chickens. We'd made a record with Schnee. We'd worked with Schnee. I'd worked with Mutt Lange in Britain and done all kinds of sessions and stuff. So we'd made records. So
Yeah, you had been around. Well, we're going to jump into the track now. It's 3 minutes and 53 seconds. I know there was some remixes. There was like a 7-minute dance remix at some point of this and different versions for radio. But we're talking about the one that was on the soundtrack here. 3 minutes, 53 seconds. Starts with a cymbal hit, and the whole band is in for a 13-second intro with the chorus progression with that keyboard riff you were talking about a moment ago. And it's just, how much more catchy can you get than that? It's just uplifting. And when the producers came back to you and said, we need something a little up, you delivered with this one. The keyboard hook over the band is killer. The guitar sound is overdriven with maybe like a phaser on it. It's such a killer tone. The bass is super funky. And right at the 13-second mark, there's this that you let out. It's almost like a whisper. And then the whole feel here changes. The horn stabs come in, which I want to talk about the horns briefly. Was that the Tower of Power section on this track?
No, that's synth horns, fake horns. That's a CS80 with believe it or not, that's how old that is, with a horn patch.
Okay. I thought there was horns with the keyboards there.
From then on, we have a horn section. Live, there's horns there. Live, there's always been horns. And there's live versions with horns there. But on the original record, there's no horns.
I was fooled. I thought that was horns mixed in with keyboards there. I love what the guitar and bass are doing here, playing off one another. And the guitar is super clean, almost with a chorusy effect on it.
And it's a very counterpointy part. It's not an easy part to play. Chris is, a fantastic guitar player. And he a jazzer and everything. That's typical Chris. It's a gorgeous little counterpoint thing, yeah.
It is awesome, and I'm going to talk about that counter riff you're talking about in a second. I'm going to get into that because there's something I want to touch on. But at 21 seconds, we're in verse 1.
The power of love is a curious thing. Make a one man weep, make another man sing. Change your heart to a little white dove.
Power of love is a curious thing. Make one man weep, make another man sing. Change a hawk to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love. And we get a little soft from you there, Huey, at the end of that. And there's a half measure turnaround. And the second part of verse 1 is tougher than diamonds, rich like cream, stronger and harder than a bad girl's dream. Make a bad one good, make a wrong one right. Power of love will keep you home at night. What's going on here?
Well, there you go. It's just like the song said. It's funny, the little you said in there.
Yeah.
And the is
yeah.
I did because it was cool. I do that on a number of songs actually. It's kind of I can't help. I like it a lot.
It's awesome.
I like it a lot.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with part 2 of this Throwback Thursday episode with Huey Lewis after a few words from our sponsors.
What's up, everyone? It's Joe, and I'm the host of That's Awesome with Joe, a podcast on the newly formed Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. I talk with tons of your favorite artists, managers, touring personnel, and more. Most of the time we talk about music, but lots of the time we end up talking about something completely unrelated. We laugh a lot. We do a lot of really stupid things, but also some things that are really informative and interesting. Basically, it's a podcast that I think you should listen to. Obviously, I'm biased because it's my podcast, but I think I might be into it if I wasn't the host. Check it out at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, it's Chris DeMakes A Podcast producer, Chris Fafalius. Will you do me a favor real quick? Go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to One Hit Thunder. It's the show that I host with my good buddy Matt Kelly, where we have guests from the world of music and comedy and art, and together we dive deep into a band or artist that people consider a one-hit wonder and decide if they brought the thunder or were just a blunder. You'll laugh, you'll learn, maybe you'll get mad at us. Who knows? We have an enormous back catalog that includes episodes about Eagle Eye Cherry, Stacy Q, Looking Glass, The Weather Girls, Tag Team, Four Non Blondes, Martika, Krayshawn, Sixpence None the Richer. I could go on and on, but how about you just subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods and experience the fun for yourself. And now, back to the show.
But the is from just getting pitch in between getting ready, boom, and Clear Mountain left it in. Bob Clearmountain mixes most of our records, and he's a genius. I memean,
Bob's a monster.
He's just really, really good.
Yeah.
And another advantage of having an outside mixer is a guy who's wasn't there when you recorded this. It's a new objective look on everything. He wasn't there when the music was cut, and he doesn't see the stitches, if you know what I mean. The sutures. And sometimes a part which was really difficult to cut, you'll tend to underbalance because you remember what a pain it was to cut it. But he'll go, wow, that's great, and put it up real loud, And so his perspective is invaluable on that stuff, and that's an example of that.
Well, no, and I was going to ask, was that it's sometimes what I refer to as vocal scatting, where you're kind of warming up a little bit, as you said, or trying to find a pitch, and it was left in there, and that adds to that realness that I feel is missing so much today when you're copying, pasting in Pro Tools. Those little things.
You have to capture performances, and when you do comps and all that stuff, there's a breath that happens. People, when they sing, they go, and there's a little breath noise in there that's important.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that breath noise, if you're just cutting in the lyrics, it ends up antiseptic.
For sure, and a lot of that I feel is missing today too. A lot of times you get that breathiness on the slower ballads, and you would really you almost feel like you're there in the room with the person as they're singing. It adds such a personal note to it.
Power Love wasn't cut with Pro Tools, so.
No, not at all. Which
it's pure analog right there, baby.
Which again, when Chris brought this riff to the band, was this a first take at the lyrics that came out of you, or what was the inspiration behind these lyrics?
He gave me a tape with a progression. I listened to it on a Walkman, and immediately had this idea. And I went on a little run, a little jog with my Walkman, and I wrote the lyric in one jog. I had it completely done in one 3-mile run.
Like the biggest hit of your career. It's like, that's like I've always said as a musician, sometimes you channel stuff that you don't know where it comes from, right?
And I wrote, the muse comes, and we were quite prolific in those days. And what's interesting is because I would write them, and we'd write them and then record them and so on, and I wouldn't pour over them much. I would just keep going, and just keep new ones. And so I didn't really rewrite enough. And this happens to me very long when I get I get down the line, I think years later, I think, man, I should have spent a little more time on that song. It could have been better. And I just kind of dashed off a lot of them. But I mean, like Working for a Living's an example. That was my first take on that lyric.
Working for a living, living and working. I'm taking what they're giving 'cause I'm working for a living.
I could have redone that a little better, maybe. I don't know.
Isn't that amazing how artists, they, the great ones at least, always want to keep pushing it. And you'll hear a song on the radio, or you hear a song that you did, and you're like, I could have done that better. But to the audience, to the fans, that's the song. It can't be better.
Yeah, no, and I never. And you're dead right. Every time I hear a song, it's always something. It's like it's either the mix or the arrangement or the lyric or something could be better. No.
That harmony, I should have had the harmony come in there. It could have been better. I know. I feel you. Well, something else I wrote here I wanted to touch on, and we're talking about that counter guitar part that Chris had come up with in these verses. Right. I love that the band is in a groove all its own with that. but your vocal melody is floating with its own thing. It's almost like two different songs at once are happening with the verse here, if that makes sense. It's almost like they shouldn't work. I mean, dun, 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 what the guitar's doing there.
Well, that counterpoint move he's got is really interesting. So they move at different times, and that it's kind of a polyrhythmic figure there that he plays, and it's neat.
A lot of times when you hear a great riff, let's look at Iron Man by Sabbath. Ozzy's melody line is copying that.
He was turned to steel in the great magnetic field when he traveled time for the future of mankind.
You could have went in here and done a derivative of that counterpoint guitar, but your melody line just sits on top of this. It's incredible. Was that a first stab on that jog? Was that what you heard?
Yeah, it was almost like, for me, it was almost like an Al Green thing. I heard it like an Al Green thing,
Yeah.
Like Take Me to the River or something. Kind of an Al Green thing.
I don't know why she treated me so bad. After all the things that we could have had, love is a notion that I can't forget. My sweet 16, I will never regret. I will know.
And that's kind of how I wrote it.
Interesting. I met that with the utmost respect. It's like two different songs. If you were to solo them, you're like, because there's so many melodies that could go over that, but what works with it? I don't think you could have picked a better one. I like that there's no pre-chorus here. You're just right into chorus one. It's just shy of the minute mark, 58 seconds. You're back to the intro chord progression with the keyboard hook here.
Don't need money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden and it's cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life. That's the power of love.
Interestingly enough, there's still no harmonies in this song, and we'll touch on that later when they come in, which I can't believe a song this big, you guys could sing a telephone book and make it sound good. Your harmonies were fantastic. This song's massive. There's no harmonies at all. The lyric here is don't need money, which is the only time it says don't need money in the song too, which is cool. Don't take fame. Don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden and it's cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life. The band stops and you say, that's the power of love. And now we're back into the verse groove and you get the hook again. That's the power of love. It's awesome. Was there any talk amongst the band members? You're in cutting the track of there should be some harmonies here, or was it just you always heard it as a single vocal?
There might be some two-part. Is there?
I think there's some doubles going on here, but I'm speaking of actual harmonies, like thirds and stuff.
There isn't. There's not even any two-part.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any. I don't know why. That's interesting, right?
It's very interesting. Especially
I actually never really until feel the power of love. There's
yeah.
I hadn't even really thought about that, but you're right.
I mean, you look at all the hits you guys had. They all have harmonies. You guys were just sang so great. Your rhythm and blues band, you could cut it live. Of course, there's going to be harmonies, and I never realized it, much like you, until the last 2 days. I'm dissecting. I'm going line by line of this thing. I'm in headphones. Finally, it dawned on me: there's no damn harmony of this song. Right. Until way later, which is just so interesting. And again, it doesn't need it, obviously, but I just found that to be very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I got to admit, I hadn't really thought of that myself. It just doesn't call for it. I mean, now that I think about it, I don't know what we would do. And you don't want a call and response thing, and then it's too
right.
Too doo-woppy. And it's not. It's just contemporary. So
the other thing that's so interesting with this is that it's none of the choruses are ever the same, and lyrically they change. A lot of times you want the chorus to keep hitting you over the head, and I found that to be really cool with this. Is the chorus is never the same, but it keeps you hooked in. Verse 2 comes right off the heels of chorus 1. You're just right back into it. First time you feel it, it might make you sad. Next time you feel it, it might make you mad. But you'll be glad, baby, when you found that the power makes the world go round.
Amen.
Do you recall that maybe this verse here was going to be up at the top and they were switched around, or was it written kind of just like this from when you wrote it?
I don't recall because I got a crappy memory anyway, but I'm sure, I think Sean said I had a slightly different lyric, but I work on this stuff in my head, and before I sing it, I have to know it like a haiku. It needs to be part of me. And it's easier when you write them. If you just, the songs, they're not that much lyrics in a song. You can memorize it easy. So yeah, I just work on it in my head. And I think I can't find any notes or any of that stuff. But I did. I had reams of stuff somewhere.
Well, and I'll tell you, it's amazing that the song sticks with you or sticks with me or any listener and like it does, because again, the choruses are all different. The lyrics change. And a lot of times, that'll throw you off. But in this instance, it called for this. It's perfect. Chorus 2, case in point, changes here.
Don't take money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden, it can be cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life.
And it don't take money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden, it can be cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life. And I had written here that, some words change here, from the other chorus. And I had written that I think a lot of this has to do with bands back then, especially your band, that was rooted, as you touched on before, rooted in rhythm and blues. Right. Because the art of jamming is lost. I don't know many bands that could get on stage and ad-lib a 15, 20-minute jam thing. Rhythm and blues bands did that. And a lot of times when you would do that, you would kind of ad-lib a different lyric here or there. And that's what I feel with this song. It sounds fresh. It doesn't sound stagnant, copy and paste like it is today. I can feel that rhythm and blues band, even though this is a pop single, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. I like doing that, changing it up, chorus to chorus. The band used to always do that, oddly enough. They would, there was little 5-beat measures. We do that a lot.
Yes.
There aren't any in Power Love, or 6-beat measures.
Yeah.
A measure and a half or something. And Heart of Rock and Roll has that,
Yes.
No place that I'd rather be. Where else can you do 500,000 things all at 2:45? When they play their music, ooh, that modern music.
It's just kind of fun. It's like little things for guys to discover who are working the songs up almost. I'm kind of two minds that way. Sometimes it's hard to get, it's hard because you want it to be just a straight 4. But once you get it, it's kind of a cool little thing, so I don't know. We do that a little bit. I think it's to please ourselves somehow and leave little cookies for other people who want to work up the song.
Yeah, no, and it's great. It keeps it from being stagnant, and I like those knee-jerk reactions in songs. Sometimes you're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And you right. Sometimes you don't even know what happened. You just know that it makes you feel different. And that's why I love dissecting songs. I can go back and go, "Oh, I get it now." As I'm really looking at it on paper, it's because this has five sets of lyrics here versus 4 in the first time. That's why it makes you feel different, but you don't realize it as the song's passing by. The bridge in this song is killer. The first harmonies come in and vocal pads of the song come in right here. And what a departure this part is. It feels totally different from the rest of the song.
They say that all in love is fair. Yeah, but you don't care. But you know what to do when it gets on you. And with a little help from above, you feel the power of love.
It kind of harkens back to something like Stuck on You, or If This Is It, this bridge part. It doesn't really sound like it goes with the rest of the song, which is great. It does go with the rest of the song, but it's such a great departure. The lyric is, they say that all in love is fair, and that's where those vocal pads are coming back, and then you're alone on the line, yeah, but you don't care.
Oh, there's harmony there.
Yes.
You know what to do.
Oh, yeah, behind it.
So there's our harmony. And by the way, that bridge, that's Chris's bridge, and the chords are gorgeous in there, I think.
They're great.
And he liked it so much that when he originally wrote the song, the music, that was a major part. That happened again, at least twice, maybe 3 times. And Johnny, to his credit, said, "You know what? That's a bridge. That's a little too this, boom, boom, boom." And Johnny arranged that way, like that, so that it's like rock relief, if you will, and boom, and you hear those beautiful chords, and it's it works great as a bridge.
Well, yeah, and you guys have always had like that 50s doo-wop thing going on with your vocals. You know, "Bad is Bad" comes to mind from the Sports record.
Sometimes bad is bad. I said cool as a rumor.
Those backing pads aren't locked with your lead vocal, and it kind of pushes and pulls there, and that really adds, again, that realism, and it's so great. But you know what to do when it gets a hold of you, and with a little help from above, and then it goes into the next part. It comes back to the verse progression, and you say, "You'll feel the power of love. You'll feel the power of love. Can you feel it? Mm-hmm."
You feel the power of love. You feel the power of love. Can you feel it?
And this part is great because you're getting the hook lyric in here twice without going back for a full chorus. You're getting that power of love in, which I think is great.
We agonized over that, but come from the guitar solo and then just power into the chorus. What the heck? I kept thinking we were maybe needed a new verse there to go to the chorus, but enough already.
Well, and I think that when you were talking about the bridge being a relief part, I almost feel like the big relief part in this song is the guitar solo, because this part, again, it doesn't sound like it was overthought. The guitar solo is not doing this 80s guitar wankery, super fast stuff. It's a very mellow solo over the verse progression. It's like 8 measures. The solo is super tasteful. There is some really cool rhythmic drum cymbal things going on here that aren't in the regular verses, but this solo's 33 seconds long. It's 1/6 of the song length, basically, but it's just kind of moving along because you know the chorus is coming back at some point. I think this is the perfect relief part in the song.
Yeah, it works good. It's just the transition from this part to the chorus is a bit abrupt. You know, you go from minor to major and it goes bam. It's a little abrupt, but what the heck? I mean,
Don't take money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. Tougher than diamonds and stronger than steel. You won't feel nothing till you feel the power.
I couldn't figure out short of writing and singing another verse, you see. And then I thought, well, now that's much ado about nothing. We've already made our point. So that's why I did that. Just goes.
No, I think you're getting the verse, albeit with the guitar solo. You're getting the feel of it. It's enough. I don't think that there, as you just said, didn't need to be any more information or any lyrics there. And now we're major again. It gets us into chorus 3. Again, the lyrics change here. You know, and I don't even want to say this is a double chorus. It's just kind of a big chorus here that kind of ends and, of course, fades out later. But the lyric is, don't take money and don't take fame. Don't need no credit card to ride this train. And I love how the melody changes on this chorus. The melodies, you go up there. And that's just, by this point in the song, it lifts again. It's great. Don't need no credit card to ride this train. Tougher than diamonds and stronger than steel. You won't feel nothing till you feel. I love that line. You feel the power. Just feel the power of love. That's the power. That's the power of love. Now we get these killer Huey Lewis and the News harmonies on this next line.
Just feel the power. Just feel the power of love. That's the power. That's the power of love. Feel the power of love. Feel the power of love. Feel the power of love.
This might be the perfect tie-up of any song ever. Feel the power of love, of that little tag you do there in the harmonies. It's so good, and the song fades out there. Again, thinking of this last chorus, I know it's a long time ago. Was this exactly how it was, or did it take you a minute to figure this out? Because it's kind of a strange chorus, the way that you end it.
Well, I just improvised that at the end. I just would sing along, and I just improvised. I knew I had to have a little. I think I wrote the diamonds part, and then just improvised. Feel the power of love. Feel the power of love. Feel the power of love. And then when we added the harmonies, is what we did. We just. I had already sung the vocal. We didn't plan it that way. We just harmonized the lead vocal.
That's so great. So
pretty easy, really.
The song comes out, the movie's a smash, which, a lot of times there was a lot of great songs that ended up on soundtracks to movies that flopped, and the song never got a chance,
This song was the fastest rising. When we released it, it went to number 1 in 9 weeks, which is real. In those days, you release a record and you get most added. You want every week there are these tip sheets that would tell you where you're at. Most added. It got most added. Then it got most biggest mover, and then it got most plays and most phones and all this stuff. Went straight to the top. Power Love, the biggest hit we ever had, and the movie wasn't out. The movie is not out, and to this day, the time between the end of principal shooting and the release of a movie is a long time. Sometimes principal, because they have to edit the movie, then they have to market the movie, they have to get it ready, and then they got to release it. The time between principal shooting of Back to the Future and the release of Back to the Future is the shortest time of any major picture ever.
Wow.
It was 9 weeks. And the reason it was because the song from the movie was steaming up the charts. And Universal said, we got to get this movie out there. And
that's backwards.
Exactly. And they rushed it up. And the day the movie came out, Power of Love was number 1 when the movie was released. And Bob Zemeckis will back me up on this. The song was the propeller for the movie in the beginning. Then, of course, the movie was a huge smash and was wonderful for the song.
That's so awesome. One last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up. Sports, you guys were on the road forever. 5 singles on that record, which I didn't include in the intro. Of course, Walking on a Thin Line was another huge song from that record, one of my favorites. But you're on the road. This comes up. You record Power of Love. 4 came out in '86. I'm assuming you're starting to write for the 4 record. But did you get any pressure from label or management? Like, listen, Power of Love's number 1. We got to send you guys back out on tour. Did you go back out on the road?
Well, they wanted another record is what they wanted. They wanted a record right away because the record label, we'd sold, 8 million or something with Sports. And now Power of Love was a huge smash. And Power of Love was not on a Chrysalis record. It was not on a Huey Lewis and the News record. Mm-hmm. It was bought by Amblin, by Universal, and it was MCA, I guess. So I can't remember. In fact, it only appeared on the soundtrack album of Back to the Future, which was a lousy record. Had one other tune on it, and a bunch of short music, and never. I think it's sold. I think it's gold now, but it never went platinum. Didn't go platinum. Interestingly, right? This is Back to the Future, the soundtrack album, Back to the Future. It didn't even go platinum. The next soundtrack album after that was Flashdance. It sold 13 million records. Then Dirty Dancing, which did 15 million records. So notion that the Back to the Future soundtrack with Power of Love sold under 1 million units is outrageous.
It is, but at the same time, as you know, soundtracks were notoriously horrible back then. You might get one cut that was decent, 1 or 2, and the rest was filler.
With this one, they had a number 1 single.
Yeah.
This was MCA, and they really dropped the ball. we weren't allowed to put Power of Love on a Huey Lewis and the News record. So it's in America, but they said you can do it overseas in the rest of the world. So we added Power of Love to 4 album in the rest of the world. In America, Power of Love is only on Back to the Future soundtrack.
Right. I had read that it was on the Japanese release of 4.
On any release of 4, any international release of 4, Power of Love appears. That's why when we play in London or Paris or Japan or any of those places, Jacob's Ladder, Perfect World, Doing All for My Baby, these are much bigger songs than Want a New Drug, Heart of Rock and Roll, and If This Is It. Isn't that weird? Stuck With You is a bigger song than If This Is It, because it's on 4 and where Power of Love is.
That's incredible. And a lot of soundtracks, labels would put it out, whatever record company, Columbia Records would put out the soundtrack, and they didn't want your song somewhere else. They wanted the soundtrack to sell. And again, to your point, the fact that the song was #1, this massive hit, and it sold under 1 million copies, the actual soundtrack to Back to the Future. There must have been some other stinkers on there, as there was. But Huey, I just want to thank you so much and congratulate you for all of your success. I've just been honored to speak with you about this today. Thank you.
You bet. Didn't hurt a bit. It was a real fun.
Believe if this is it. Please let me know if this ain't
I hope you all enjoyed this week's Throwback Thursday. If you're new to Chris DeMakes A Podcast, don't forget to scroll back through our back catalog. We've had tons of amazing episodes with tons of incredible songwriters, and they aren't time sensitive. The stories behind the songs don't change. And if you really love Chris DeMakes A Podcast and you'd love to have twice as many episodes, head to chrisdemakes.com to sign up for our supporting cast, where you'll get weekly bonus episodes of The After Party and a whole giant back catalog of those as well. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back Monday with another great new episode.
Girl, don't lie and tell me that you need me. Girl, don't cry and tell me nothing's wrong. I'll be alright, one way or another. So let me go or make me wanna stay. If this is it, please let me know. If this ain't love, you better let me go. If this is it, I wanna know. If this ain't love, baby, just say so.
Ever wonder what a punch from Elton John feels like?
Or how you'd cope with having turned down the chance to be in Nirvana?
Or what signal Keith Richards gives when he wants you to get the hell out of his hotel room?
Fans of Too Much Effing Perspective don't have to wonder, because they've heard these exact stories and a jillion others on our podcast. I'm Alex Hoffman, former tour manager for Radiohead.
And I'm musician and comedy writer Alan Keller. On the TMEP show, we get guests like Nancy Wilson from Heart, Jeremiah Freites from the Lumineers, and Modern Family's Julie Bowen to tell us things they may have only shared with their therapist, clergy, or a TMZ stringer.
So join us on Too Much Effing Perspective. That's EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.
Hi, this is Paul Phelps,
And this is Monica Strutt.
and we're from the Daily Music Business Podcast. We're joined by a number of other really great hosts in creating daily content with great advice for independent musicians just like you.
That's right. We put out episodes daily on all topics from music marketing to branding, advice on signing with a manager and label, and anything else you need to up-level the business side of your music career. We've got it covered.
Subscribe to the Daily Music Business Podcast today on your favorite podcast catcher.
Subscribe today to the Daily Music Business Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.